safe, mine and my team's. And the best way to protect backs is to know how. Like when something's too heavy to be lifted by one person. Bring in the forklift!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Gander on the Fly. I'm your host, Janet Langdon, and this show is tourism themed. We were down speaking with the tour guide of Beyond the Words Tour. We'll show you that interview. We're outside the North Atlantic Aviation Museum, and I'm with Abby Moss, who's the tour guide for Beyond Words Tour. Thanks for taking the time, Abby.
Thank you so much for having me on.
And so tell us now, it's the brand new beginning of the season. What are you going to start out with and when are you going to start?
Yep, this is the second year for Beyond Words Tours, and we're starting on June 7th, and we're going to run through to September 15th this year. It's a little different this year because we're actually going to be doing evening tours as well. So there's going to be still the afternoon tour where you get to go to the airport, the museum, town hall and meet your local, and as well as community hall. But our evening tour is a little bit shorter. You don't get to meet the local or anything, and that one runs from about 7:30 to 9 o'clock.
Well, that sounds like fun. So 2 tours a day.
Yep, it's going to be 2 tours. And the evening tours are kind of directed towards people who are getting in late in Gander and want to do something in the nighttime where maybe nothing else is offered, or people who are doing the motor coach tours. And so they get off from their tour and decide they want to explore Gander a little bit more.
That's great. And so you said this starts up now June 7th?
Yeah, June 7th is our first one.
Which is coming really fast here, and already the weather is beautiful. So any additions from last year's tour?
No, I'm tweaking the script a little bit and the route a little bit, but there's no additions or any major changes.
And how about how do I book it and how much does it cost and all those good details?
Our tour is online. It's at beyondwordstour.com. You can go on and see all kinds of pictures and reviews. You can book your tickets through there for the afternoon and evening tours. And of course, you can come into the museum and book your tour that way or call us. So it's just a really great mixture of different ways to get in touch with us.
And what kind of response so far? Like, are you getting, advance bookings?
Yeah, so far we're doing really good online. Dozens of online bookings so far, I would say. It seems like people are really excited, especially through our Facebook page where the people who took it last year are still commenting saying, they had a really great experience. It's a memory they'll really cherish. So it's getting people excited.
And from how far away this year would you have a reservation? Can you think of anywhere geographically that somebody is coming from, way far?
I do have a couple from New York, so that's not too unusual, I don't think, because they would have seen the musical there. Nowhere else off the top of my head, a few people from Ontario and places like this.
I guess with the North American tour of the play starting, I think that's starting in September. Maybe maybe it'll be the next year that you're going to see.
Yeah, I'm anticipating next year when it opens, especially over in Europe and places like this. Maybe we do get a lot of Europe travelers, but now they'll know the story more familiar and probably want to take the tour as well.
And so today, I know you're doing something with Kevin Tuerff. So what are you going to show Kevin?
I'm going to do kind of a little condensed tour with him. He knows our story, so I'm going to take him to the airport and just tell him what a tourist would experience when they come here. I always say we go to the airport first because this is where the plane people would have started their journey, and so I'm excited to take him back there and just tell him what I know from the time.
And I know when I went on the tour with you last year, we got into the International Lounge, and that's something that you're going to try to do each time?
Yeah, I do try to take them into the International Lounge. Now, I don't promise anyone because if there's a plane down or anything's happening at the airport and you can't get in, I hate to have people disappointed. But it is something that I do like to showcase, and you can still get a beautiful view from either up above or in the glass tunnel.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's bonus for the people that actually get in to experience it. And when you say they're going to meet a local when they go to the town hall, are these one of the counselors or are these one of the characters? How has that sort of developed?
Last year I usually used people that were portrayed in Come From Away, but I do have other people in town willing to step up if I do need them. It's basically a call service. I just phone them up and ask them if they're available that day. Of course, planning ahead a bit more if I know I have a tour that day, but everyone's been really good so far.
Yeah, that's a really nice added touch, right? To really meet somebody that, the play is based on and was here on the ground when everything was happening, right? Would you think the evening tour, is that maybe could it get hooked up with some screech-ins or anything of that nature?
I know there's talk around town of a few bars, I think, that are willing to do screech-ins. So if that happens, and after we do a tour, they want to be dropped off to do a screech-in, I'm willing to do that as well, and definitely promote them as well, the screech-ins to tourists, because people are always looking to do that Newfoundland tradition.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to take the tour and learn all about it, you want to become one of us, one of the Newfoundlanders. So, anything else you can think of to tell the people that are wanting to maybe take the tour?
If you got anyone visiting and they're looking for come from away experience, they want that emotional touch, they want to see some exclusive artifacts from the time or anything, definitely contact us at the museum. We'd love to have people on board.
And one thing it just comes to mind, you had something set up at the North Atlantic College. Is that still for this year?
It's actually moved this year. We haven't finalized our location just because the tour runs through June to September. School's in session, so we couldn't make use of that hall again. And so now we're just playing with a few different community partners to see where we're going to set up.
That's good, because I just felt that was a really nice added touch, and people can get in and lay on the cots and, really sort of have a hands-on.
Yeah, it was. You could kind of visualize, your 15 people in a room, how they would have experienced it, looking at photos and stuff like this. It was a phenomenal piece, and it was really touching to see how emotional people got when they experienced it.
Yeah, and all the stuff you had on the walls, it was almost like a mini museum in itself.
Yeah, we were calling it the exclusive mini exhibit if you wanted a bit more 9/11 artifacts.
Okay, well then, thanks, Abby. I can't wait to hear how the season goes, and bring on the tourists, as we say.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so much, Janet.
So now, staying with the tourism theme, we're going to show you a few highlights of an interview we had previously with Brian Williams, the new Tourism Development Officer for the town of Gander. And like you say, if you're speaking to people from New York, and come from away is going to Australia, that's a for sure.
And Dublin as well.
So I didn't know if Dublin was a for sure, so if that's really good. So there will be European people, there's going to be Australian people. It's also doing the North American tour. So I can imagine we can anticipate that tourism is going to do nothing but increase.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. That's exactly what's anticipated, and I want to work so that it does come about. And people are visiting from around the world. They're getting cultural experience, but we benefit as well. I mean, you can think about dollars going into the economy, of course. They need to stay somewhere, they need to eat somewhere, they need to gas up, they need to rent vehicles, of course. But at the same time, it can be a cultural experience for us, for people from other parts of the world who otherwise we might never meet.
Do you think that the town could have an ongoing kitchen party of such, or a screech-in, or something along those lines?
Ongoing kitchen party, not quite sure, but we have had some discussions about screech-ins. Screech-ins is not quite necessarily a Gander thing, it's more of a Newfoundland thing. We're thinking about ways, how can we put a local spin on it, make it our own, not just locally, of course, but I mean Kittiway Coast as well, and make it something maybe different from the screech-in you might get on the Avalon or on the West Coast. Make it ours.
Could that be something aviation themed?
Oh, it's going to be.
Does that mean we're going to get more rides in planes?
Well, I haven't quite got that far just yet, but let's just say that we are working on a number of aviation themes which will benefit and harken back to the history of Gander.
Well, speaking of that, today I was out walking on the heritage trails, and they are doing a fantastic job. So that's one of the things just right in the town that people can go and experience.
Yes, exactly. There are so many new things in Gander, even over just the last few years. If you came here 15 years ago, maybe you had the Aviation Museum and maybe the old Cobb's Pond Park. No, we've got a lot more than that. We have the new Cobb's. It's so expanded. There's so much there to see for families to do. And the Gander Heritage Trails, of course, the old walking trails up by the airport, they're working on making those much more world-class, so to speak, than rather than just a rough trail through the woods. And there are some other things in the works that I can't divulge just now, but we're going to have a good tourism product in the coming years.
It's really, really exciting.
I got your back, big guy. Join us in our mission to help protect backs at work.
Welcome back, everybody. And now moving on, we were down speaking with the author of this book, Channel of Peace, and we will show you that interview now. We're at the North Atlantic Aviation Museum, and I'm with Kevin Tuerff, one of the real-life characters on the Come From Away play, Broadway famous play, and author of Channel of Peace. So, Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time, and welcome back to Gander.
It is always great to be back in Gander.
And you just tell us all about what you're doing. This is a fun tour that you're on.
That's right. I was planning to come up here. We're doing a talk. I do a number of talks that I call the ripple effect of compassion. And it all started here on September 11th when I was a stranded passenger, and sort of how that ripple effect has influenced my life even today. And so that's coming up next weekend in St. John's. And I've noticed when I go to see Come From Away, I don't go anymore because I've seen it enough times, but I go meet people afterwards and I'll take them to have a drink and tell them what I call the rest of the story. And so I get to watch the hundreds of people coming out of the show, and their faces are filled with emotions of tears of joy and just glowing smiles. They're so happy when they come out of there. And it's great too, because whenever there's Newfoundlanders in the show, they bring the people in the audience, they bring flags, and then the Americans want to go over and give them a hug, and they love, and they say, well, I want to go there, I want to go to this magical place. And so I've witnessed that enough that I got in touch with Maxxim Vacations, who has a Come From Away experience tour. And I said, I'm a marketing guy by training. I said, let me take the tour and then write about it, talk about it, and really share it with Americans so that they can see how to get here and all the great things to do across Newfoundland.
So this is how many days on the tour?
I'm
Your
on
stop
day
here?
3, I think. And so started 2 days in St. John's, and then arrived in Gander yesterday, spent some more time. I got to see the other real characters who live here in Gander, and whenever we get together, it's like going to a family reunion. It's so much fun, and I love all of them, and I love my other friends that are here too. So, and then I'll be headed up to Twillingate, and then doing an iceberg tour, and with another character, my friend Diane Davis. She'll be joining me. Then I go down to Port Rexton, and then eventually back to St. John's. But I really think that, I hope that more and more people will come to Gander as tourists, and to help drive the economy, and really get to meet people who live here who are so compassionate and wonderful people.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting you say bring more and more people to Gander, because tourism sort of in general in Newfoundland is just on the upswing, really, in comparison to a lot of other provinces. So your timing, I think, is just perfect. And with that, if this tour, how will this be sort of, you know, put out to the people of the United States, for instance?
Well, I'm pushing all of this through my social media, and just sort of the ripple effect of that, and you know, hoping that there will be other travel writers that will see this and perhaps write about it in their efforts and what they're doing in the media. So really, I hope that it does, and I really hope that, as I tell people, you know, I think if I had a cardboard sign and I stood outside the theater saying trips to Newfoundland, I think I could book 100 tickets a day.
You're probably right, like right there, right at that moment.
So maybe that'll be my next job.
Not a bad job, actually, Kevin, not a bad job.
Give me a credit card reader and I'm ready.
Right. So, and then Maxxim Tours now, so if you're doing this, and I think you were telling me that there's a blog attached and you're doing some writing? I'm writing a blog every day, and the Telegram, what's wonderful is I contacted them, and I said, hey, I'm gonna do this. What would you think about publishing my photos and videos and my experience? And they said yes, and they're doing it every day for this week. And they're publishing it, pushing it out to the Saltwire Network, which is like 30 papers in Atlantic Canada. So maybe it will even reach out and convince others from Atlantic Canada to come and visit too. Of course, you know. And what's really cool is the editor of the Telegram came up with his own idea. A big part of my book is about how I started Pay It Forward 9/11 in 2002. I went home to Austin, Texas, where
lived, and wanted to come say thanks to the people of Gander, but it was too far, too expensive. And so I said, I can't pay them back, but I'm going to pay it forward. And so I would give out $100 bills to my staff of 40 in Austin, Texas, and have them go do random good deeds for strangers and tell the story of what happened here in 2001 on 9/11. And so that's really, I've stepped down from that company, and but now what's wonderful is Come From Away has taken on my tradition, and so the cast and crew and band, they all, every 9/11, they participate and pay it forward. And then what's terrific is knowing that the editor of the Telegram said, we're going to encourage people all across the province to do random acts of kindness for a kindness week this week. So anybody here in Newfoundland, I encourage anybody. It's just, it makes you feel good. It's, you know, as in the prayer of St. Francis, for it is in giving that we receive. And so you get something more out of it by buying somebody, a stranger, a cup of coffee or a tank of gas, or doing something simple but kind.
Those words couldn't be more true, because it is in that giving that you know, the real beauty of it, shall we say, exists.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you've been doing this since 2002. Kevin, it's amazing what the whole 9/11, what it has evolved into for your life.
It really has, and by pure coincidence, I now live in the Ground Zero neighborhood of Manhattan. It was really because I wanted to find a place that had a washer dryer in the apartment, and so I ended up in this tall high-rise, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm like just blocks from the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and so now living in New York, and the reason I moved there is not because of the musical, it's because I found this remarkable church. And this church, Church of St. Francis Xavier, they have an outreach effort helping immigrants and refugees. And that's my new passion, is to just as the people of Newfoundland welcome us in 2001, when I came back here in 2016, when they did come from away here in the town, I was blown away because Gander Refugee Outreach had brought 5 Syrian refugee families here. And I thought, wow, compassion wasn't just a 9/11 thing here, it's how people of Gander operate every day. And
true.
I want to take that and bring it back, export that to America, where some of us have forgotten. And I don't think that Canadians own kindness. I know that Americans can be kind, but right now we're very divided. And so I think that's one reason why this show is doing so well with audiences, is they're grasping onto that there is a better way.
Yeah, and you speak of the refugee outreach, and is the proceeds from your book still?
Proceeds from the book benefit
Right.
refugee organizations from this new edition of the book. This is from House of Anansi Press in Toronto, and my first edition book, we raised tens of thousands of dollars to help Gander Refugee Outreach, and I believe that there's soon hoping that there'll be one more family that will be coming in, so all those funds will help that happen.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. And your other friend that you mentioned, Diane, who's going to go chasing icebergs with you, but she's also very involved
Absolutely.
with
She
the
is
refugee.
she's my inspiration.
She's a lot of people's inspiration. Yeah, it's just that like nonstop giving, and so you make a fine crowd of people. We got to say, all the characters that it's based on.
Yes.
So you're leaving here, and like you say, you're going to Twillingate, and each day you'll be documenting, and out goes the information. People can follow along.
Absolutely. Even in the future, we can still go back and look at it. Hashtag USA2NL, USA to NL. We want to get Americans to Newfoundland.
Right. So the more that comes, the merrier. Because now we have a new, I don't know if you've met him, but we have a new tourism development officer in Gander.
No, that's great news.
So, and it all, sort of gets, of course, focused on what you're doing and Come From Away. So again, it couldn't be better timing.
That's
great.
And
tell us a little bit about, so this is the second edition. So what's, I read your first, and now I'm going to have to read the second. So what are some of the changes?
Yeah, so what was great was I worked with a really great editor from Toronto and really helped me revise some of the stories, added a little more detail. Actually, there's some new stories, and there's about 20 pages of additional copy. And then there's also more photographs, and they're all in color in the middle of the book. And so I think it's just a much better book. I think it took a good book and made it better. And so I'm really honored to have a global publisher now. And what's great is as this musical grows, it's going to, a 60-city tour, North American tour. It's going to go to Australia. It's going to go to Ireland, to the UK. And so I hope that my book goes along everywhere and that it gets picked up, so people can see more stories that are not necessarily in the musical. And that's the reason I wrote the book, is that people in America, when they first saw the musical, they said, why have I never heard about this story? And I want to know more. I want more stories. And so that's why I wrote Channel of Peace. And so it's more of my personal story, and then it also includes, what's it like to have yourself show up in a Broadway musical, and so it's a lot of that, and then it takes the reader all the way up to current day, really, where I went on a spiritual retreat. I had this vision where I saw the word immigrant, and it was something I've never happened to me before. And then next thing you know, I'm in New York City, and I see this banner on this church that says, "Welcome immigrants and refugees." And I thought, wow, is this a sign? And went inside and just was blown away by what happened there. I thought, well, I have to come, this has to be my church, but I can't commute here from Austin, Texas every Sunday. So even though I said I love New York, but I would never live there, that changed in that 1 hour. And so 3 days later, I rented an apartment and I moved. It'll be about a year ago in June.
Wow. Your story is like endlessly amazing.
Well,
I mean, truly, like
surreal is probably a good word for it.
It is.
And then it's going to be a movie too. How crazy is that?
Going to be a movie, and there's rumor that it could even be filmed. You may know more about that than us, but it's possibly going to be filmed.
I know
that
is the intention of
right.
both. I did speak with Christopher Ashley and David Hein, Irene Sankoff. They all want it to be filmed here. So I don't, it's probably the company, the Hollywood producers, who ultimately make that call. But I don't know what the timing is of that. We're all anxious to see it, but I think they want to do it here because they want to support the community, and they want to invest dollars into Gander and all the surrounding towns.
Wow. I think years and years and years ago, there was a Jimmy Stewart film that may have been partially filmed on location in Gander.
Wow.
That may be the only, as far as like a large
right.
production,
right?
right? Of course, there's independent films,
right?
But, so that would be, just another amazing thing to happen to our town.
I mean, I can't, if it were me in charge, I would be hiring the entire town to come be extras and to just as they did in 2001, drive the cars around the airport fenceway and look at the planes.
Right.
And maybe get on and off the all 38 planes. I don't know. I mean, I think I know it will be a musical version of, a movie version of the musical.
Right,
and so
right.
It'll be fun to see.
Oh, can't wait. I hope I'm right here, right on the ground when all that happens, right? So, and again, I'll go back to Maxxim. So now they hope that, people will see this, and so they're ready to bring people and do exactly what you're doing. You're trying to give that experience.
That's right. And so part of the tour, which I'm going to be doing here later today, thanks to the people at the North Atlantic Aviation Museum, they have the Beyond Words tour.
Right.
And so that takes people into the story of what happened, and they see a lot of the things that are in the musical. So they go to the airport. We go to see the World Trade Center Steel at Town Hall, Gander Academy, Steel Community Center. So I'm going to take that tour later today, and I'll be taking some pictures of it. And so I really think that once people see, there are so many fans, more than 500,000 people have seen the musical now. So when more people who love and are obsessed with this show, when they see, they're like, wow, I can go see where the Legion is. I can go to the airport. I think that will draw more people here.
Oh yeah, so you're doing the best of the best, shall we say, while you're here in Gander, which is lovely. And like where we are, the North Atlantic Aviation Museum, this in itself is a beautiful place.
It really is.
And
it's
the
amazing.
information, there's lots of people that don't realize what a gem this is.
It really is terrific. This is my third time here, and the display about September 11th and Operation Yellow Ribbon, and it's really well done. And I'm sure that the Beyond Words tour is just as good.
Oh, absolutely. Abby Moss, who is
Yes.
going to be your tour guide, is. I was lucky enough to take it last year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. She's awesome. Yeah. And so later today, you're going to be having your book signing. Is that what
Yes.
we're doing here?
Yep.
Yeah.
There'll be people coming by. I just wanted to give people an opportunity to purchase the new edition, and I'll be signing books and seeing some old friends and getting some hugs.
And any other book signings in Gander, or is this
No,
it?
this is just
it.
a real quick visit, and but then doing a book reading in Twillingate tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the public library, and then I'll be headed back down Port Rexton and then St. John's, doing a big keynote speech at the Rotary Convention.
That'll be exciting.
Yes.
And what are you doing in Port Rexton?
Just having fun.
Oh,
That's part of the tour, the
Right.
Maxxim Vacations tour. What's really neat about what they do is they'll cater it to, because normally I think it's meant for people who they want to fly directly into Gander, and it has them take the tour around Gander and then other areas nearby. For me, I had to come into St. John's, but so they said, but we're willing to cater a tour for whatever anybody wants to do. Like if somebody didn't want to do an iceberg tour, they would have to do something else. So they're really good at specializing based on the customer.
Yeah, and I know they sometimes take part in like tourism conferences and stuff in New York, right?
Yes, and they told me, they said they were overwhelmed by the response in New York of people that were saying, we want to go to see Newfoundland. And so I want to help them make that happen.
We're very appreciative of that, Kevin, and we're very appreciative of your time. So again, we'll say welcome to Gander, and have a great tour, and I think lots of people are going to follow you.
Yes, thanks so much.
Proper technique is no accident. It requires thought and attention. So, to remind myself not to twist, I am thinking nose between toes, use your legs. Nose between toes, use your legs. Nose between toes, use your...
Thanks for watching, everyone. That wraps up another episode. We'd like to thank our guests, Abby Moss, Brian Williams, and Kevin Tuerff. And if you would like to volunteer, because we always thank our volunteers, but if you would like to volunteer, you can find out more information on rogerstv.com, and that's where you can stream us at any time. rogerstv.com, we're there, and again, thanks for watching.